Well, tonight on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into the fallout still of this decision with the Supreme Court about affirmative action. And remember, I stated in the podcast that the Asian community is going to regret being a part of being a pawn for the white supremacists, because the white supremacist could not do this on his own. His new strategy is use all these immigrants that came into this country to try to unravel all the protections that actually help out those immigrants that come here to this country. So you remember the lady that we talked about a few nights ago named Yating Chu? Let me put that tweet up. So you remember this lady right here? And she said, I told my daughter that today is a big day. He said they've ended affirmative action. Isn't it what you've been fighting for? She asked. And I said, yes. Now, you know, Yateen is that woman at the bottom in the blue to the right. But check this out, Yateen. Since you want to unravel some things, let's see how them same people you teamed up with is screwing you. Let's put this up. Now, the guy that you see up there, a Robin Voss, he is a representative from Wisconsin. The guy, Dan Lennington, is an attorney, and he's also part of the right wing. As you can see here, it says SCOTUS, eliminating racial discrimination means eliminating all of it, and that came from Chief Justice John Roberts. So he says the Wisconsin legislation can take some easy steps after this decision, such as fixing numerous scholarships, grants, and programs that exclude millions of Wisconsinites because of their race. Just one example. And then he put down here the minority undergraduate grants. You know, the things that you don't have to pay back. It says in this section, minority undergraduate means an undergraduate student who it is a Black American, it is an American Indian, is a Hispanic, is a person who is admitted to the United States after December 31, 1975, and who's either a former citizen of Laos, Vietnam, or Cambodia, or whose ancestor was a citizen of Laos, Vietnam, or Cambodia. If there is established to be administered by the board, the Minority Undergraduate Retention Grant Program for minority undergraduates enrolled in private, nonprofit higher educational institutions in this state or in a technical college in this state. So already, Yateen, they're now going after those grants that was for Asians. And they're going after those programs that Asians can get in. And they talking about technical school. So they're not even just talking about college. Now they're talking about technical school to take away grants and scholarships and everything from the Asian community. But remember, Yateen, Black people were the problem. See, I'm not tripping on them taking anything. You know why I'm not tripping on it? For multiple reasons. But the main reason why I'm not tripping on it is because we wasn't getting it anyway. We were not getting it. The Asian community is going to be the lackey for everybody to be pouncing on. You're going to see, because of what's going to roll downhill. White women are going to get upset with the Asian community too. And when they all talking about people pissed off at them and they looking at them funny and they treating them bad and all that, I'm going to say, hey, that's what you get for playing footsies with white supremacy. We told you, we told you, we told you. They're going to take everything away that they can. Because let me tell you why they're trying to do this. The white supremacist is desperate. The white supremacists see all these different groups of people coming in. And they know eventually those people are going to want resources. They're not going to just be underneath them forever. Now, of course, we see these immigrants coming to this country, and then they click up a white supremacist to attack us, as you can see with the Supreme Court decision. But they don't understand how when you team up with the devil, it never works out for you. And then later they'll be crying, right? Crying, and if it get too bad for them, they go run back to their homeland. See, Black Americans, they don't have nowhere to go to. Sure, we can go become a citizen of another country, but it's a process. This is why some Black Americans even take issue with the continent of Africa. Why do the diaspora got to go through a process to go to the African continent if that's what they want to do? It should not be no process like that other than processing paperwork. Now, I know some countries like Sierra Leone have a citizenship program. Like if you take African ancestry and it comes back that your people trace back to Sierra Leone, you know, people have been getting citizenship that way. And I love that program actually better than any. I think all African countries need to take that program and say, hey, if you trace back here, then you should get a citizenship. That would be real good. I really support that kind of program. But we're going to see more and more of the unraveling of programs that a lot of these other people benefit from. Everybody going to start losing things now, especially in the red states. You better believe that. Now, let's get to the meat of what I want to talk about tonight. There's a video from Dr. Claude Anderson I mentioned a few podcasts ago. I said I wanted to get into this. And let's listen to Dr. Claude Anderson and why he state in this particular clip why we should focus on reparations. Let's roll that.
We're going to talk about, I guess I can call it shampoo. Okay? Now, all of you know that when you're going to go down and clean your carpeting, you go down to the store, you get the machine, and you go in and buy a little thing called shampoo to clean the carpet. And what shampoo does is really, it takes the sham out and leaves the poo in, okay? And that's what's been going on through history with black folk. They keep taking the sham out, you see, and leaving the poo in. So this morning, we're gonna do a little shampooing, okay? And we're gonna start off, and I'm gonna show you, take you right through history again, through a second segment of history, and we're gonna start dealing with some of the issues about reparation. And everything I tell you must be taken in that context if you really, truly are gonna understand the nature of reparations. That's the only way you're going to do it. You must understand the nature of it. And what it's saying is this. What I'm saying to you is that reparations is not a nicety. It's not something nice to have for black folk. It is now an absolute necessity. If you do not get reparations soon, black folk, as I told you before, are through. Reparation is not a nicety. It's a necessity. Now, I first wrote my book, Black Labor, White Wealth. That's what I was telling you then. That's been 7 years ago. When I wrote the first affirmative action plan in the United States in 1971 that Jeb Bush just killed in Florida, as you all been reading about in the paper, I wrote that plan in 1971 as reparations for black folk. And nobody was giving anything to black folk for reparations at that time, but it was killed off within 6 months. It was converted to things for minority, women, children, gay, handicapped, midgets, humpbacks, everybody else. Everybody but black folk. And it was diluted down and black folk got nothing out of it. So affirmative action was dead 6 months after I put it on the floor. But now they've been given the pretense that somehow they've had affirmative action all these years. And they haven't had anything for black folk. Black folk haven't gotten anything out of affirmative action. And so in a way, I'm glad that affirmative action is now dead. I want them to bury it, and throw flowers, commemorate, and let it go. And I want black folks to go to reparations. Because that's the only way. You got to have reparations. There's no other choice.
So as you heard Dr. Claude Anderson, he said that let affirmative action die. He created affirmative action in Florida. He was the creator of it. And he said within 6 months, they undermined it. They muddied the water. They made it where it didn't even benefit black people as it should have benefited black people, those who are descendants of slaves. It did not benefit us at all. But he say focus on reparations, and lineage-based reparations is important. He said that black folks need reparations. He was saying it at that time, and it's more so today that black folks need reparations. As you can see, if you focus on reparations based on race and saying it's black race, you see what happens when you focus on race. They'll strike it down and say, no, you can't do anything specific for a one group, right? So it has to be lineage, and it has precedent on that with the Native American tribes. So lineage-based is the right way to go. On top of that decision, believe it or not, Yateen, that decision actually helped black people more than what you think. Now you say, Phil, how did that decision help black people more than you think in the area of reparations? Well, while Yateen was celebrating, in her mind, black people being put into colleges and universities over them, because they thought that you can't qualify, you can't do the work, You can't. That's what they think automatically. So you taking a place for them with their arrogant behind. They got she from China. They got universities in China her behind her children go to. Why in the hell is she fighting for universities here? Or why didn't they go build their own universities in America, right? Well, Yateen didn't realize is that even 2 Supreme Court justices, Clarence Thomas, which a lot of people don't like, and Justice Neil Gorsuch, in their opinion, they said certain language that we needed to make sure that was written down already. Let's take a look at what Neil Gorsuch says, because what he says is actually very important. So let's start. It says the white category sweeps in anyone from Europe, Asia, west of India. So those East Indians, they're not calling them white. Oh no, they say you Asian, you are not white. He said it embraces an Iraqi or Ukrainian refugee as much as a member of the British royal family. So they look at those Arabs as white. You understand what I'm saying? And this is what this coming out of the Supreme Court justice. Now let's look at it like this. He says, meanwhile, black or African American covers everyone from a descendant of enslaved persons, and say who grew up poor in the rural South, to a first generation child of a wealthy Nigerian immigrants. Now, that's interesting that he brought up Nigerian immigrants and wealthy Nigerian immigrants. Let me say something real quick before I keep going on. You know, if you take the best of any nation and put them anywhere, they're going to thrive. Let me give you an example. If I take 10,000 well-to-do families out of America, I'm not talking about the millionaires and billionaires. Let's say families who make $250,000 and above, married couples with their children. And I take all 10,000 families who still have ability to make money here in America and use it in the African continent. So I take those 10,000 families and I place them. We could pick a country. We could say Nigeria. We could say Ghana. We could say wherever, Namibia, South Africa, Kenya, wherever we want to place them. And we take those 10,000 families, and immediately when those families get there, they already been educated before they came. They already been running businesses before they came. And they'll hit the ground running. And in a short amount of time, they have surpassed the average everyday person in that country. And more black Americans of the upper echelon keep coming and coming and coming for years and doing that, right? If you look at the statistics of those black people will earn more, have more education, their families will stay together, etc. Versus the average everyday person in that country who's struggling, who's suffering. They won't have the access to income, the access to the best schools, access to people in government, access to judges, law enforcement, so things can go their way when their kids get into trouble. And then if those people start saying, well, hey, I came over here to Namibia and within 5 years, I done passed all y'all. How I'm doing it? And then the people be looking like, what? You come in here with an advantage. So a lot of times what happens with immigrants, even those who come from certain countries, they're not the average everyday person that's getting up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, getting on a tuk-tuk, getting on a boda, and trying to go to work every day. It's not those people. It's the upper echelon people in these African countries with government officials' kids that have certain ties, certain government officials who sold out to the West, sending their kids over here or their families over here. And then what the United States do, especially here, let's say if there was a doctor already over there in Nigeria, they'll make them go back to school here. But since they already was a doctor, you breathe through school. You already know the job, right? And then they give their kids opportunities and different things like that. So if you bring the best of the best here, you bring the best of India here, you bring the best of China here, of course they're going to do better than the average citizen because you're bringing the best. I just wanted to put that in there because people don't understand. Now, when you're talking about those coming from Latin America and through that southern border, that's just your labor class. That's not your top of the echelon people coming across that way, because upper class people are not going to be going through no trek through no Mexico on foot. They're not about to do that. That's your labor class coming over here for those low skill work jobs. Your upper echelon people, that's they kids are going to Harvard. All these African immigrants, Caribbean immigrants, Indian immigrants, Chinese immigrants, all these different people that's going to the Harvards and the Yales and all of that. These are your connected, well-to-do people coming from these foreign countries. And the issue is with those who are black in skin, not culture, because black is our culture, Nigeria is their culture, Ghana is their culture, whatever place they come from, they put them in there definitely on purpose because they don't want a descendant of slave in there, because that's a totally different conversation at that point. But let's continue. He says, to a black identifying applicant with a multiracial ancestry whose family lives in a typical American suburb. Now let's get to Clarence Thomas and what he said. He said, members of the same race do not all share the exact same experiences and viewpoints. Far from it. He said, a black person from rural Alabama surely has different experiences than a black person from Manhattan or a black first generation immigrant from Nigeria. Well, they keep harping in on Nigeria and say, in the same way that a white person from rural Vermont has a different perspective than a white person from Houston, Texas. However, the acts apply to freedmen. He said refugees, a formerly race neutral category, not blacks writ large. And because not all blacks in the United States were former slaves, freedmen was decidedly under-inclusive proxy for race. So this is my issue. I'm not talking about Clarence Thomas's explanation, but you got on record, I think Ketanji Brown Jackson also called this descendants of slaves. She called this freedmen as well. You have a Supreme Court justices are saying that term. Also Justice Brett Kavanaugh talked about descendants of slaves in certain opinions too. So when the Supreme Court justices are putting that down, that term, that delineation term, calling us freedmen, calling us descendants of slaves, that helps Black America with lineage-based reparations. You have to understand that, because now, since the Supreme Court, it says your group is a descendant of slaves or freedmen, and there's only one group of people that's a descendant of slaves in America, then you can keep going about lineage-based reparations, because now you have a standing with you having delineation outside of just black. You understand? Because if you just say, oh, well, all black people should get it for discrimination, it's not for discrimination. It's not for redlining and all of that. It is for slavery and the wealth that was built by the white supremacists off of our backs. This affirmative action thing, as Dr. Claude Anderson said, let it die, let it burn to the ground, because no affirmative action has not benefited Black America at all. It has benefited white America, white women in particular. After white women, it's benefited white LGBT, white disabled, white whoever, and then everybody else. These so-called minority grants and programs have not benefited Black America like it was supposed to. It has benefited everybody else. So don't let the Democrats play this trick game they're gonna play with you and try to say, hey, get us in there because they're gonna take away all those minority set-asides. No, let it go. Listen, they can take it a step further. I will say this. Hey, conservatives, white GOP conservatives, I want you to make sure you equalize the races in sports too, in college. Yeah, I want you, because see, you have all those black basketball players on there. I want you to say it's not equal and they should have an equality for white people. Because you know what they're doing now, right? The white supremacists now are saying that he's being discriminated against for his race. I mean, you can't make this up. You can't. So now they're victims now. Listen, the whole time they have been telling me and you to stop playing the victim. We always victim. You know, hey, get an education, go work, don't stop crying all the time. Now they're crying. Wait a minute, Mr. and Miss White Supremacists. I thought you said stop playing the victim, and now you're playing the victim? So see, I told you, if they breathing and speaking to you, they lying. How many times I've told you that? Because the same thing they told you to stop doing, because actually you are a victim and you're still being victimized at this hour, at this minute, at this second, you still being victimized by white supremacy. It's okay for them to cry victim. It's okay for them to cry discrimination all of a sudden now. Oh, I couldn't get into college because I'm white. I couldn't get into college. Do you know what kind of sick joke that is at this point? They control everything in this country. They control the schools. They control the laws. They control the government. They control everything. And then they want to say that because the white people who own or run the school or whatever they're doing, because they decide to take a little bit and give to people outside of white, and they're going to make sure to give black people the least out of that. Other white people are saying the white people that's running things are discriminating against white people. How can you have, so basically what you're saying, that's white on white discrimination? So that's what you're saying, because Harvard University is not an HBCU. So that is ran by white people. So you speaking about white on white discrimination. How does white people discriminate against white people based on color? How do they do that? I'm trying to figure that out. You saying you didn't get a scholarship from a white institution because of the color of your skin. You are the same color they are. How do they hate their own? You say UNC, that's a white institution. How do they hate their own? To be so discriminatory against other white people. It doesn't make sense. But this is the deal. They going for broke because they feel like they're losing the system. They're losing it. It's too many people coming in here that's not them. Because Neil Gorsuch could say all day these other groups are white, but these other groups have a mentality for their own people. And even he consider them white. Turkish people going to be for Turkish people. They're not going to be for them. Iranians going to be for Iranians. Iraqis going to be for Iraqis. They're not going to be for them in the end. And they know this. This is why they want to bring it back to what it used to be. But see, this the issue. This the problem that you got. See, at one point in time in history, Mr. and Miss White Supremacists, you usually can get away with doing a lot of stuff to black people and nobody really knew. Because you were the gatekeeper of all information. You were the gatekeeper of images going out to the world, videos going out to the world, newspapers, everything. You were the gatekeeper of that. So you can hide when 100 white supremacist terrorists go to a black town and destroy it. You can hide it, but you can't hide it today. See, 100 years ago, someone like me would not have access to the world like I have access now. To tell the truth on you, what you have done, the history, and just to quicken my brothers and sisters to the knowledge of what they need to be quickened to so they can make their own decisions how they deal with you and everything else in the world. See, you're nervous because you don't like a spotlight put on you. Understand? See, you are like a roach. You are like a roach when the lights get cut on you. And the problem is the light has been on this roach and it's scurrying so much. It's scurrying because everybody's seeing them globally. And then your adversaries like China, especially them, they watching you. And you know, the moment you open your mouth, you open your crooked snake fork tongue about them, or anything they do in their country, human rights, you know what they're going to tell you? Well, look at what you do to black people. You trying to stop black people from going to college. Why are you doing that? And ride down on you about that. See, black America, unfortunately, Mr. and Miss White supremacists, we are your Achilles heel globally. How you treat us, the world is watching. And if you do us right, the world's watching that too. You're trying to hold on to a system and you're losing your standing in that system every day. See, you can't walk around and go throughout the world telling people about democracy and Christianity and how great your society is when everyone is looking into your country and seeing that you can't even have a society without a crazed lunatic maniac from your community running up in a mall or some sort of store, and they're not the place. And it happens so much that American citizens are just used to it. Say, oh, another one. Okay. That's how much your society has went into decay. The whole world sees that. On top of your racism, the world sees that. On top of the mass incarceration, which is slavery, the world sees that. Everybody sees what you do now. Everybody's getting educated about you now, your ways, how you move. You can't walk around with your finger wagging no more. They see the agendas you are trying to push on other countries, but you won't push on others. They see your racism. For instance, if you look at what's happening in the African continent about what they pushing LGBT, everyone, even in Africans, are saying, wait a minute, why are you pushing that here, but you're not going to Saudi Arabia pushing that? They got the same laws. Why are you not threatening them with sanctions? Because of racism. Because remember, Neil Gorsuch said people in Saudi Arabia is white. Hello. Saudi Arabians and all them Arabs in their mind is white. So they're not going to push on a white country in their mind an agenda. And why don't they say something to Russia? It's illegal over there in Russia too. Notice they never said they were going to try to sanction them for not accepting LGBT, but you're going to threaten black countries? The whole world is watching you. The whole world. So this is why you're getting desperate. This is why you get nervous. And listen, you will lose. You tried the Civil War. You lost that. You tried to do everything you could to us during Jim Crow and all of that time. You lost that fight too. The more and more you press us, eventually we're going to respond in our own way. But we don't really care about affirmative action. You could take that. We got HBCUs if that's what we want to go to. Now, some of you may say, oh, but the HBCUs, or, look what happened with Dion. Well, let me tell y'all something. Now that portion falls on us as a community. You fight white supremacy, but you can't clean up the mess in our own backyard at these HBCUs. Either these presidents do what they supposed to do, or you say you grab them by the collar and say, yo, nope, you're done, out. We're gonna place that who we want in that HBCU, and they're gonna run it. Another thing that we're gonna have to start doing is making sure the majority of these HBCUs are people that's descendants of slaves too. We're going to have to, because we should be looking at who we letting in. Let's call it what it is. In African countries, they don't prioritize foreigners. They prioritize citizens. And I'm not upset with them for doing that. But in this Babylonian system, they want to prioritize foreigners over the citizens. And this is what causes animosity and even causes xenophobia, because you're prioritizing foreigners over the citizens. Prime example, you have some of that going on in South Africa, where foreigners are being prioritized in certain arenas over citizens, and makes the people upset and say, I don't want you here, go back, X, Y, and Z. Of course, to me, it's sad, because it is other black people they're talking about. And I would say, look, if you want to be xenophobic, hey, get that colonizer out and then deal with the brothers and sisters. That's how I feel about that. Get that colonizer completely out your country. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't like that. We go attack each other, but we let the white supremacists walk scot-free and don't say nothing to him. You don't run up on him talking about, hey, you get, nope, this land is my land now. Nope, you can go on this. You descendants of the Netherlands, you Dutch, go back over there. That's your homeland. It's ours. It's been a good run for you. See you. Government, give them a plane ticket, ship them on back. Just that simple. I mean, now, if you really want to get down about your country, but we shouldn't be fighting each other. But we need to circle our wagons. And we're going to have to bring all your talent to the HBCUs. We literally could turn that around overnight if we chose to. I'm like this, let them have the institutions. Because at one point in time in this country, you couldn't go no Harvard. You couldn't go no Yale. You couldn't go no Columbia. You couldn't even go to your local college in your town. Because white folks like, no, you're not coming here. You better go over there where your people at and go get an education over there. And if it goes back to that, it goes back to it. I don't care. Because we've been saying we need to unify in our community. We need to get together. How many of y'all have said that? Well, it looks like that the white supremacists gonna make you unify. And for me, that's a beautiful thing. Because when we unify and actually work together as a community, we thrive. We thrive big time. We do not thrive when y'all go into their institutions. We don't thrive when the majority of us are working for them. We don't thrive like that. We stay an employee. We can have a Harvard or Yale degree and don't even get the job that we should get paid for. And then if we do get the job, so you got a Harvard degree and you got Becky coming in from freaking Purdue University making more money than you. You went to Harvard as a black person. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, what? I'm like this. What's the point? I don't like the sabotage. I worked, jobs for the folks. I've been in the petrochemical industry. And all the knowledge I had, I should have been a plant manager or something. All the knowledge I had, I didn't get nowhere near it. Not because I wasn't a hard worker, not because I didn't show up to work on time or nothing like that. They just overlook black people. They don't appreciate black people. And that's fine because I work for myself. And I love every minute of it because I appreciate myself and I work harder for myself than I ever work for somebody else. I would never in my life work for anybody harder than I work for myself. Shoot, the bare minimum. That's what I would do. The bare minimum. Because as a black person, they don't give you the money you should get. It don't matter. It don't matter what profession you in. You work for them folks, you're undervalued, you're undermined and underpaid. Some of you may get scared about some of that stuff that's coming your way. If you don't want to deal with any of that, and listen, I'm kind of more so like you, right? I don't really want to deal. Look, as the older I get, the more I don't have patience for white supremacist antics, Karens. I don't have patience for it. But I make sure I set myself up where I can have a permanent vacation away from that situation, right? Of course, everything you got to do it right. But like one person said a long time ago, said, man, one day we're going to lose Phil. You will. It's going to happen. The time will come. You won't lose me like not being here no more on earth or something. Not talking about that. But my day and hour will come where I won't be here because I am personally sick and tired of the racism. I have so much of a great time not being around racism like that. That's a relief for me, just being away from racism. Some people say, well, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to fight that. Well, knock yourself out. It's a time for everything under the sun. It's a time to fight. It's a time to fight to the end. And then there's a time that you got to rest. Shoot, let some other people cycle in and do some fighting. All them young people, all their energy, they should be stepping up to the plate and fighting. But if older people won't get the hell out the way and let these young people actually step up to do some fighting, well, shoot, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you get to a point that you need to be the consultant. You need to be the person giving the wisdom and let them young folks go out there and deal with that. I have no problem being in a position of wisdom and consultation. None. Because there's so many other things that I want to do. All our life as black people, we fight. And you should not back down and you let anybody run over you. No, I ain't no punk at all. But it gets tiresome. And sometimes you just need a break. You may need a break, a month break. You may want 6 months break. You may want it. Hell, you may say, I'm living my best life now. I'm done. I'm waking up in the morning, go work out, come back, chill my nerves, drink me some good fresh squeezed juice or something, and I'm just chilling. I'm not worrying with them folks no more. I'm done. But like I tell people, you're never done as long as you live in the West. You always gonna be fighting them. If you're not fighting them physically, you're gonna be fighting them mentally. So every day you live in the Western world, you're gonna be fighting them. You ain't got no choice in the matter but to fight them, because they sure gonna come after you. You can't go to the freaking grocery store without the potential of dealing with a freaking Karen. That's fighting you. The only time they halfway act decent is from my travels, is when I'm in the African continent. Then they be on their P's and Q's a little bit more because they outnumbered. See, when they outnumbered, and that's why they don't want to be outnumbered. When they outnumbered, they know to check themselves. When they got the majority, they act more of a fool with you. I noticed that. But we need to focus on reparations. The fight is reparations. Lineage-based reparations. Period. Anybody come up talking about, well, why racism? No, I don't care about that. And let's call it what it is. Listen, my cousins from abroad, I love you. Oh, I love you. But y'all chose to come here. It's a choice. And some of your countries I've been to, sure, you got problems, but you don't have these problems. Personally, I wouldn't, knowing what I know, I wouldn't choose to come here. Not here. I would go to another black nation on the African continent that's maybe in a better situation than my country. That's what I would do. Why you want to come over here for and dealing with this mess? Just saying, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, shoot, if you got talent, you can always go make some money. Trust me on that. But reparations is the focus. Reparations is the fight. Lineage-based reparations. And now with that alley-oop with those Supreme Court opinions, you have more of a standing getting lineage-based reparations than any other type of reparations. Somebody talking about race, somebody talking about, nope. Anybody talking about race-based reparations, they're trying to sell you down the river.